Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sandy, I muted you a little while ago. You can unmute yourself if you like. I am gonna make you, not Sandy, a co-host.
Okay.
And there you are. What else?
Excellent. So then are you entering people or I'm entering people or there's no need to enter people?
Always make it so you can show up whenever you want to. I don't make people wait.
Okay,
So, yes.
cool.
Sandy was on when I got on.
Excellent. Speaking of, I just saw a Hort volunteer t-shirt that I think is Sandy's that needs to get to Sandy
Ah,
from
and it's
2 years ago.
weird that I can mute people, but I can't unmute people. Isn't that odd?
Probably the way it should be.
Yeah. Oh, well, I just wanted her to know that she was muted in case.
Right, maybe she logged in and walked away anyway.
And then ran away.
Right.
All right. I'm probably gonna go dark and mute.
Okay, so you're gonna leave me here alone?
No, not for a while. But it's entirely possible eventually. But you got this thing, right?
Oh, there's Vince trying to.
That's so funny looking. If you hold your hands out like that, you are blurred, but your hands aren't.
Yeah, your hands are not muted. It's in the volunteer.
Already recording all of this.
Hold on. Shouldn't be. Hold on. It's to you. It's, Kira's not. I don't know if Peter's gonna be on it. Okay, we're back in business.
I'm surprised. There we go. See, people are coming in. They're coming in.
Trickling in. Oh. I hope people remembered. Oh, here comes Nancy and Al.
Look at Nancy's headset. Than ours.
Hello there.
Hey, Nancy.
Hi. Oh, hey, did you guys hear about those? Pennsylvania has just declared 3 plants noxious and they're not to be sold.
What are those?
Ravenna grass, glossy
Mm.
buckthorn, and
Mm.
common buckthorn. Ravenna grass has another name, but I didn't pick that one up. But it's a grass that grows about taller than you are. And apparently it's widespread because it's nice in landscapes, but it's invasive.
Yeah.
And you can get it on the computer. I heard it on the radio and then I looked it up on the computer.
Okay. Yeah, and we have buckthorn's a problem here in our natural areas for sure.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah.
If you want to, like Vince is doing updates.
Okay, he's coming again. I'm not fucking pulling around.
You need to get some super glue.
Okay, these are really old.
Hi there.
This thing on? Am I there?
Yep, I see you.
Oh, good. Hey there, Nancy, how are you doing?
Good. Oh, hey, what is the other word for Ravenna grass?
Ravenna grass.
Ravenna. No, I just heard on the radio about
Oh my
that.
gosh.
And they gave the other name, but I forgot it.
You mean the genus name, right?
Whatever it is, I forgot it.
Oh, I'm drawing a blank on it myself, Nancy. I'm sorry.
Just today it was on the radio that and buckthorns.
I'm
were,
sure one of our smart horticulturists on staff could unmute themselves.
I believe it's Saccharum ravennae is is what I'm seeing online.
But there was another name, a common name that I thought,
Oh,
I'd
no, the
heard
common name. I don't know, Nancy.
yeah,
I just know it as Ravenna
because I
grass.
never heard of Ravenna grass.
Yeah.
Elephant grass
Hmm.
or ecra.
I don't know. It's something that's like it'll grow as tall as a person.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty beastly.
Yeah, and they had it on the radio, the three different plants that Department of Agriculture had said should not be sold in Pennsylvania.
Can't argue with Ravenna grass. It's kind of gets beastly and out of control very quickly.
Well, that was the impression I got. What did they say?
Is it pampas grass?
Maybe
No.
that was it.
Now, pampas grass is a different
No.
thing.
Is it?
Pampas grass is Cordaderia.
Mm.
What,
All
Aaron?
right.
Invasive. I think that's the
Oh.
term they used, invasive.
Oh, yeah, it's an invasive grass, if that's the term. That is a good term to describe it. I don't think Pam wants to grow it in the wetlands anytime soon.
I guess not.
Definitely not, nor either of the buckthorns that they have listed. I was just looking at the article that
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
they
Oh,
posted.
good.
And the common buckthorn is what we have, which is rhamnus. And
Right.
it's a problem.
Yes,
right.
it is. Alrighty, so I guess what's the time here?
It's 1:02.
1:02. Should we give folks a few more minutes to see? There's going to be a crowd of people logging in any second now. I wouldn't want them to miss the first 2 seconds of my presentation, so
Of course not.
I have to go back over it and talk about it again. That's terrible. So
And feast your eyes on the tulip photo. I did share it, didn't I?
exactly.
Yes,
Yes.
it's gorgeous.
And that was last year's tulip display. And there will be another tulip display this year. We planted a bunch of tulips in the rose garden again. to have that really beautiful, colorful display down the center walkways. And so that'll be happening soon. Well, not soon, but this year. All righty, Pam. I'm going to get this show on the road then, because I got 103 here, and I think a few more folks have joined us, so we'll just get started. Well, welcome everybody to our volunteer symposium again this year. It's virtual. Maybe one day we'll get back to doing these things in person, but for the meantime, it's great to virtually see all of you once again. Before you know it, it's going to be March, and we'll be back out in the garden doing some gardening kind of things. So in the meantime, though, we're going to kind of give you the first of two sort of abbreviated volunteer symposia. And for today, we are going to give you sort of a horticulture department update. I thought it'd just be best if everybody talked a little bit about the things that we're going to be planning to do this year, where we are in terms of the horticulture department, and where we hope to go. So with that, Pam, if you want to jump to the next slide. So there we are. Look, there's our great Hort staff, or at least that's part of us. That was this fall. One of the things we've been doing is trying to go to visit other gardens as a horticulture department. And this picture here is taken from the Hagley Museum, and that's where Paul Orpello is these days. Some of you may remember Paul when he was the horticulturist here in the Compton section. Paul left the Arboretum to go become the director of horticulture at the Hagley Museum, and he was kind enough to give us a tour of the gardens there this fall. And so that's most of the Hort staff right there, and a few others. So next slide, Pam. So as you know, we have a lot of new staff on board. And so I thought I would just kind of give everybody this brief sort of map to show where everyone's sort of located. If you notice in the bottom left corner, though, there is a yellow quadrant called the Azalea Meadow, and the horticulturist in there is named TBD, which stands for to be determined. We are actively interviewing that. So you can go to the next slide, Pam. So this is sort of a list of all of the positions that will be new or changing this year. So you can see there's a lot of new folks coming on board here at the Arboretum in the horticulture department. So I just thought it would be good to kind of walk through this list with you, just to kind of explain what's happening and how it's changing. So next slide, Pam. First is the Azalea Meadow section leader. As you know, Louise Clark was filling that role for us last summer, but Louise retired on October 1st and moved on to bigger and better things. And so that position is vacant at the moment, and we decided to not fill it right away. Instead, we would try to fill it for March. And so we advertised the position in December, and we received over 50 applicants for the position. That's a lot for us for an open position. And so we've been compiling interviews. We've interviewed pretty much most of the candidates at this point, and we are still on track for completing this whole process and having somebody on board by the first week of March. That's been our goal all along. And so I think we're in pretty good shape at this point. We're not quite ready to pull the trigger and announce anybody yet, but we're getting pretty close. And so I just want to let everybody know where we were there. The idea is to try to bring that person on board before the interns start, so that this person can sort of hit the ground and get their feet underneath them a little bit before we have our new interns beginning on March 7th. So Pam, if you want to go to the next slide, which brings me to our internship candidates. So as everyone knows, we changed the intern program, mostly because of the way Penn was changing how new employees are brought on board. And so part of the intern program had always been the intern class, but the way Penn has changed the onboarding for new employees, the interns would not have been able to take the intern class. And so we decided to restructure it from a 12-month internship to a 9-month internship. And in the process of doing that, we were able to get more interns. So this year, we're going to actually have 7, what I'm going to call horticulture interns that actually work in the garden, doing the gardening part of their internship. And so that'll be 4 horticulture interns. And those 4 horticulture interns, 2 will actually be J.L. Pinnock interns, and 2 will be Charles Holman interns. So the endowments created by Lyndon Pinnock and Charles Holman will actually help us fund 4 horticulture interns now. The natural areas intern is one that's funded by the Hay Honey Farm, and that's through Gail Maloney, a gift from her family. And then there are 2 arborist interns, and they will be, they're also endowed positions by the Walter Root Arboricultural Endowment. And so all the candidates have accepted their offers at this point, and they're all going to start on March 7th, except one. The arborist intern, one of the arborist interns will start in May. And the idea for that is to have them staggered a little bit so we can have some arboricultural intern help through the winter. So there'll be 9-month internships, but they'll be somewhat staggered. One will start a little earlier than the other. So we'll have roughly 12 months of arboricultural intern help from 2 interns. So that's how that's slated to work. And as I said, all those interns have accepted their offers at this point. And they're going through background checks and all the necessary hoops and things that the university requires us to jump through. And so hopefully they'll all be squared away, ready to start March 7th. So Pam, you want to go to the next one? We have in the greenhouse, Kira Matan has 2 positions she's looking to fill. One is the propagation fellow. So the propagation internship is now becoming the propagation fellow, and that is a 12-month internship. That's not a 9-month internship. So that intern will work 12 months. They'll start in March and go through February. And that's the way that is slated to go. And so her fellow has accepted her offer and will start on March 7th. Additionally, you may remember Steve Pine, who had been an intern at one point and became the greenhouse assistant under Shelley. Steve decided to pursue different opportunities at the end of this last calendar year. So he stayed with us through December and has moved on. You may or may not know that Steve works part-time at Mount Cuba, and he's going to pursue that on a more full basis. So we have a greenhouse assistant position that was open, and Kira had I forget the total number of applicants she had for that position, but it was a crazy big number. And she's kind of whittled through all of that and has come down to her assistant choice. And I believe that person has accepted the position, but Kira is out sick today, and I was hoping that she would give us part of her sort of a speech here, but unfortunately she's out, so I can't give you a lot more details. And I believe this person has accepted, and hopefully we'll be able to announce that very shortly. Next slide for me, Pam. And then we have a couple of positions we're calling part-time permanent positions. These positions were things we called seasonal positions in the past. They were temporary workers who basically signed a contract to work for the summer seasons, and every year we had to rehire them. And there was a fair amount of turnover amongst the seasonals. The university has worked with us, and we have now created these as part-time permanent staff positions. So these are positions now that are benefits eligible positions, which is a good thing for us. It's a good thing for the gardeners because they'll have we're able to give them a more permanent appointment at the university, as I said, and they're benefits eligible positions. And the other thing we hope that it will do is give us continuity from season to season with the different gardener positions. Sometimes the seasonals tend to be college students and the like who just want a summer job and then they don't come back the following year. By creating these part-time permanent positions and making them benefits eligible, we're hoping we can attract people who would like to have a sort of a more continuous employment, if you will. And so that's the 3 part-time assistant gardeners we're going to be hiring, as well as the 2 part-time permanent train masters. And so that's where we are with there. I'll pause here if anybody has any questions. I realize I kind of rolled out a bunch of topics there about staffing. So speak now or forever hold your peace. Going once, going twice.
I got a question.
Oh, shoot, just made it. Okay, yes.
Sorry.
That's fine.
What is with the 2 part-time train masters? I'm curious, is that a new one?
No, that's the position that Bruce Morrell and Josh Faia held for us as train masters. It's basically those 2 positions. But in the past, they were just temporary workers and they just got paid a wage with no benefits. Going forward, they will be paid a wage plus benefits. And so, as I said, we had to have them reapply and sign a contract every year. Now we're able to hire one person and they will continue on. So we won't have to go through that process anymore. Does that make sense?
You said hire one person, but I see two part-time.
Oh, no, you're correct. It's two people. So we'll be able
Two
to hire.
people, okay.
Yeah, there's two different positions, two part-time train master positions. And so each position will be hired, and that person in that position will be able to continue onwards. We won't have to re-advertise, rehire, and have them re-sign a contract.
Yeah. Does the Garden Railway run most of the summer then?
Yeah, the Garden Railway runs from Memorial Day through this year. It's going to run through the first week of October, and then it'll shut down, and then it runs from Thanksgiving to just after just right before New Year's Eve.
I see.
So-
Okay.
Yeah, and just as an aside, I think some of you may know this, some of you may not. We December of the Garden Railway this year was a catalyst for us having the biggest 1 month attendance in our Arboretum history since we've been keeping attendance. We had just over 25,000 visitors in the 28 days that the garden was open in December.
Wow.
And to also put other numbers on that, the Garden Railway alone, just the evening ticketing events generated over $100,000 in revenue. So it's very popular. So make sure you get your tickets early if you want to go see it next year, because it did sell out every night. So that's a good thing for us. So next slide, Pam. Just to give everybody a sort of a heads up on where we're going, we have attempted to become more environmentally friendly here at the Arboretum. And one of the things we have started doing was as our equipment fleet ages out, we've been trying to replace things with electric vehicles and electric tools. And so some of the things you see here are all new tools we got this year. I'll kind of go clockwise, starting at the top center. We have typically had gas-powered golf carts. This year, we purchased 2 electric golf carts. So they're in the garden these days. On the right side next to that is the electric truck. We now have 6 electric trucks in our fleet. And we've been able to sell a lot of our, basically a de-accession, if you will, a lot of our gas-powered vehicles. And so we're having a much more small gas carbon footprint in the garden. On the bottom right, electric chainsaws. The arborists have been using those for quite a number of years, and we keep adding more to the fleet. In the bottom center is our electric shuttle, which we purchased this year to help us with our overflow parking. One of the things that COVID made us realize is that using our floodplain as an overflow parking was useful in terms of getting more people in the garden. But with our gas-powered van, it was difficult, or the university basically would not allow us to shuttle people from the bottom of the hill upwards, which is one of the reasons why we had to go to the timed ticketing procedure, just simply because we were not able to pile people into the van, drive them back up to the top of the hill. So with the purchase of this vehicle, we now have this open air shuttle, which allows us to do that. And so we were able to increase capacity in the garden, which is one reason why we set another attendance record this past year in terms of people in the garden. We're able to sort of increase our capacity in parking and therefore increase our capacity of visitors in the garden. So that was a good thing. And if you notice, it's hard to see in this photograph, but on the top of the vehicle, there actually are electric panels. So while this cart is out in the garden and while it's being used, it's able to gain, have passive solar gain and keep itself a little bit more charged. So we get a few more runs up and down the hill with this vehicle because of its electric panel. The bottom left corner is Lydia Morris. It's our MOWRIS, we call her. That's our robotic mower that we purchased this summer. And it's been operating on the slope between the rose garden and the log cabin. So some of you may have seen this. It has a little charging station over near the Wisteria walkway. And basically it mows the entire slope there from the Patrick Doherty exhibit almost all the way to the crabapple slope and to the swan pond, just a little over an acre that it covers. And that had always traditionally been our most difficult and / dangerous slope to mow with our big mowers. When the weather conditions weren't right, we could not mow it well without tearing up the turf. This is a 4-wheel drive articulated robotic mower, which is able to mow that hill without any problems. And it, for the most part, gave us almost 0 problems this summer. The only 2 times it had an issue was once when it ran over one of the metal marking flags we had put down to sort of indicate where it could mow and not mow. I think a visitor picked it up and dropped it and the mower hit it. And the other time was when a stick got stuck up underneath it and it couldn't move. So beyond that, it's been pretty foolproof. So that's a very good thing. And then above that are just 2 more electric equipments that we use, the electric string trimmers and electric blowers. They help us in the garden to keep a quieter profile, if you will, when the garden's open. One of the things we've been doing the last couple of years is trying not to operate equipment in the garden when the garden's open to the public, or at least not make a lot of noise. And these electric power equipment allow us to still do some work in the garden without being obtrusive to the visitors. So it's been a good thing. Next slide, Pam. And then one of the things I want to talk about just a little bit with everybody is how we want to try to sort of fine tune the Wednesday volunteer experience. And one of those things is we are hoping to institute a sign up genius for this year for volunteering in the garden. So we, Aaron, I am not the sign up genius. Aaron Conley is the sign up genius. And so Aaron sort of created this sign up genius for us. And so what we're hoping to do, this is kind of a mock-up of how it's going to look. So we're trying to identify different levels of work that would happen. So from high level of exertion to low levels of exertion, you know, and sort of some of those ideas. High level exertion tasks would be like pushing wheelbarrows, mulching, that sort of thing. Low level things would be deadheading, sort of weeding in the shade kind of things. And so we're hoping that by identifying some of these tasks, that'll make it easier for people to try to select where they want to work. So the next page, Pam. And this is what a typical week would look like. We hope to have the Sign Up Genius up and running on a Monday so that people can log onto the site and sort of look and see the different tasks to be done. So for example, this is sort of like a page of some of the tasks. So the first one would be like mulching in the rose garden, you know, and so they would say we would need like 5 people to help with that. And so there would be sign up slots that you could take. And then there would be, you know, different tasks outlined so people could sort of understand and see better where they might want to fit and work and do what they want to do. So that's sort of where we're trying to head in this general direction. So I'm going to pause here to see if anybody has any questions about this.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, Mary.
Is this each week we'll be getting a chance to sign up on this, or is this once you sign up for one thing, that's it for the whole season?
No, this would be each week. So
Each
like,
week.
for example, on this page I'm showing here, there's 3 locations listed. One would be working in the rose garden, one would be working in the Pinnock garden, one would be working on the Nissa slope, you know, and so those areas would be outlined and there would be tasks associated with it. So you could decide, you know, which area and which tasks seems to fit you better. Some folks want to come in and mulch, some folks don't, you know, so you can get a better, clearer picture of what the jobs are and help select what you want to do.
And then I have another question. I
Yes.
see that you've got a limited one of 5 slots
Mhm.
or 6 slots.
Right.
And my question is, do you have, if people want to sign up for something and it's already full, does that mean your chance is lost?
In some instances, yes, but there'll be more slots. So this is just like a mock-up to show 3 possibilities.
Okay.
We would have more slots for other jobs. I just couldn't squeeze it all onto the page right here. Does that make sense? So the area that in other words, what I was able to show is just 3 tasks right here. On a typical day, there would be a multitude of tasks and things to do.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Mhm. Anybody else? I know I'm not that good. I know I have created lots of questions, so don't be afraid to ask. Okay. I'm going to stick around for a while. I have another meeting at 2 o'clock, so I'm going to have to jump off at some point. But if anybody has any questions about anything that I talked about so far, please feel free to speak now and holler, and I'll try to answer them. Otherwise, I'm going to pass the baton off here. I think it's to Aaron. So Pam, you want to jump to the next slide?
Yes, hello everyone. So the first update from the Rose Garden desk is that there will be a construction project happening in the Rose Garden starting in October. And so this involves, oh Pam, you can go forward 3. Thank you. So just for orientation on this map, you can see the top entrance of the Rose Garden. And yeah, so basically the cross walkway and the main walkway of the Rose Garden are currently grass, and they are going to get paved with bluestone, which is the same material that the sidewalk is coming down from the parking lot to Widener. And so this will start in the fall, hopefully to finish up in the springtime, hopefully plenty of time before Moonlight and Roses. And so the fountain is staying the same, but it will get a cool Victorian stone pattern around it. Pam, you can go to the next. And so it also requires some regrading. So the east quadrant there on the screen, some of those beds closest to the pathway will have to get removed and then replaced after the grading. It doesn't seem like the slope in the Rose Garden is very steep, but it's just enough that it is going to need some regrading. And next. And then also these beds that are kind of along the path there, along the wall, those are going to get reduced. That's going to be the side entrance is the way that the construction vehicles will access the garden to do this repaving. And so we're going to have to get them a pathway and also reduce those beds a little bit there too. So this will increase accessibility to the Rose Garden year round. It'll be a huge improvement for the Rose Garden. Next. And you can go forward. So here, top entrance next. This is the garden next. You can keep going.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So that you're putting in these pavers, how will that affect runoff, and where will the runoff go?
Yeah, so there will be drains that will be part of the paving, and then also part of the regrading will help with that too.
And can you go back a couple slides to that center of the Rose Garden? There you go, that's good. So Andrew, if you look right here, you can notice when you come in from the top entrance, there's like a little black bar across the walkway.
Right.
That's a drain. There's 2 drains on either side, on left and right. There's a drain in the center. There, excellent, Pam. All these drains will feed into a pipe, which will run right down the center of sort of beside the center. And then on the left side where it says Stumpry, Pam, that little plaza that's there. There you go. There you go. That plaza there. There actually is, Andrew, a pillow of gravel that runs from the center walkway all the way down through there that was put in years ago as a drainage channel. When we were having some drainage issues in the Rose Garden, it still works. So our idea is to channel all this water into that gravel pillow, which goes from the center walkway in the middle bottom, Pam. There you go, right there, Pam. There's a gravel pillow that goes from there all the way down to that left corner. And that's sort of a recharge basin. And then the extra water will flow into, there's a little, just below, go a little bit south where you are, Pam. Right there. There's a drain right there in the turf. So we're able to tie into that. So all the water from the walkway will go into that gravel pillow. Any excess water will then go into that little drain. And that drain daylights down up the road across from the fernery, where there's that large gravel area in the woods.
Right.
That makes sense. So that's the overflow. So eventually we're hoping that most of the water will be recharged in that gravel pillow. Any overflow will end up down there in that gravel basin.
So since you have 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 drains along the path there, the new path. So is everything pitched to go to each drain?
It's, Yes, it's to not get lost too far in the weeds here. This is a very difficult
Oh, I love
grading
the weeds.
project.
Always have me picking them anyway.
So because of it's because of the center fountain having to be level, and the fact that everything in the rose garden slopes from Lydia's seat to the summer house,
Mhm.
there's a tremendous cross pitch here. So we have to level the pavement around the center of the fountain and yet keep everything else pitching towards the summer house. So it's a very
Right.
complicated pattern. And what's not shown here is that on the south side of all the walkways will be like a little curb, if you will, of bluestone. So the water won't pitch into the beds and cause erosion. It'll run down the pathway into these drains, which then get picked up and taken to the gravel pillow. So it's a complicated, it looks really simple. Oh, we're just going to pave it. But in reality, there's a lot of complex grades in here to make it look right.
Until looking at this plan and, being out there in the garden itself, you don't really realize the slope, because the upper left-hand corner is 182.7 feet, and then down beyond the garden is 165 feet.
Exactly.
So that's quite a slope. I didn't even realize.
And what's
unreal there.
Yes. Yeah, the part that Aaron mentioned, the regrading that's just to the right of the center, it's really great that Aaron just put a little oval, said, oh yeah, we have to regrade here. It's actually pretty complicated. We have to pull the grade back probably 8 or 10 feet from the walkway in order to make it look right. And it's not an even regrading. We regrade less at the center of the fountain, down towards the far right on the side entrance. We'll probably be grading a foot or more in depth in order to make it look right. So pretty much all of the roses in there have to be removed. Everything has to be regraded.
I like a teamwork, Jay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Great plan. I love that. But the boon of this is two things. One is that the center walkway in the rose garden just takes a beating over the summer. It was designed essentially for 2 people to use the garden, John and Lydia. It wasn't designed for 150,000 people to use the garden. And so the turf takes a beating. So by doing this, we'll be able to keep the garden open year round. We have to close it periodically to do turf repairs. And the other thing it allows us to do is the entrance on the right side is a handicap accessible entrance, but it's only accessible until you get to the rose garden. The rose garden itself is not accessible. With this new paved walkway, all of the areas you see at the center walkway will be at a handicap accessible grade, so that anybody can go into the rose garden and pretty much experience the fountain and see all the views that you need to see while in the rose garden at a handicap accessible grade. So that's really exciting.
So handicap accessible, say people in wheelchairs, they would come in from the side entrance on the right?
Correct. So there you go. That entrance is actually at an accessible grade. And we had done that years ago when we first put the loop path in, was put in that at an accessible grade, thinking that at some point we would do this project. So it only took 20 years to get to this project, but it's finally happening.
What's the rush?
Yeah, what's the rush? Exactly. Sorry, I stepped all over Aaron. I apologize, Aaron.
All right, thank you.
Yes, so this is looking at kind of near the rose garden from the top. And so you can see the Widener Woods. You can go forward, Pam. The top of the rose garden, and one more time. And so this is a mansion path, which is the relatively steep path that comes from the parking lot down towards the top entrance of the rose garden, because it used to lead from where the old mansion used to be. And so one more, Pam. So this garden used to be called Leia's Garden after the intern that designed it in 2005. But we're kind of renaming it the Mansion Path Garden. And since her design of it, the shrubs have gotten really big and overgrown and have pushed out some of the perennials that were used to be in there. So we're just going to do a minor kind of just editing of this garden with some pruning of some of the shrubs, maybe a removal of a couple of them, and then the addition of some more perennials to add some more color, kind of just as a transition garden between the Widener Woods and either the rose garden or wherever else guests continue into the Arboretum. So yeah, just a little bit of editing in there and hoping to add some more color in there too. Go ahead, Pam. And one more. And so, oh yeah, questions?
It doesn't look like the Morris Arboretum, Erin.
So then my last update, yes, so I will be guest gardening in England this summer. I will be at a private garden called Malverley's. And Pam, you can go forward, I think 3. So if you zoom in a little bit, perfect. Nope. So I will be gone mid-June through mid-September, and you can see Malverley's here is about an hour west of London. The closest town is Newbury, and the garden is probably about 10 miles from Newbury, which is in the Hampshire area of the UK. You can go next. And so a little bit about this garden, like I said, it was a private garden. The current owners bought the property in 2009 and hired Matt Reese as their head gardener to handle the redesigning and management of this garden. And so he's been there for about 10 years. And so he went to school at the Royal Horticulture Society of Wisley and also worked at Kew. And before coming to Malverley's, he worked at Great Dixter with Christopher Lloyd and Fergus Garrett as well, and has also done some plant collecting throughout the world. And so he is the head gardener and then has a small team that I will be working with, and you can go next. And just a little bit about the garden. So there's not a ton of info or pictures on the garden because it is mostly a private garden. You can visit it. If you call ahead, they'll tour groups and such. But you can see it has those giant deep borders. Next. Another picture of some of the gardens. Next. And then a couple other elements. They have a laburnum arch with the alliums. They have a yew topiary lawn that actually has a meadow underneath it. They have a very cool stumpery as well. And then also a cool garden. These are just a few of the many different aspects of the property that I will be lucky enough to work at. So that is all for my rose garden updates. If anybody has any questions?
Erin, do you want to tell? Yeah, Erin, do you want to tell people about how it is that you're getting to go here?
Yeah, so part of it was through the Chanticleer Scholarship. They helped help me like connect with a garden in England, and then Morris will also support me being gone for 3 months during the summer as well.
So to that point, first of all, congratulations, Erin.
Thank you.
But secondly, for your rose garden gnomes, who's going to be running the rose garden?
I think that'll be me, Deborah. So you're going from the frying pan into the fire, I'm afraid.
That's all right. That's fine with us. We'll miss Erin, but we'll take you as a substitute. Thanks.
Take lots of pictures.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so I guess I'm up next. I don't have anything quite so exciting as a new path or a trip to England, but a couple of things that are happening in the Compton section. We are looking to refresh the bed around this large Zelkova right at the visitor center. We just want to make a better first impression than we're currently making. So we are going to take out a lot of the things, maybe move things around, and add in a lot of new plants. We're still kind of figuring out the final design for this area, but these are some of the preliminary drawings and plant ideas that I have. So this yellow line here is the proposed new bed line. It's very not a super great line, just drawn in PowerPoint, but it gives you the idea of where that new bed is going to go. We want to encompass more of the plaza, give it a more enclosed feeling, and allow the bed itself, allow the plantings to kind of sweep through the area a little bit more. Next slide, Pam. So these are 2 of my drawing designs for the area. You can kind of see that sweeping bed line, and you can't really tell any of the plants, but it just gives you an idea of the plantings through the bed and the shape of the bed. Next slide. For the plants that are going in here, the one side under the tree is very dry under there, and it's almost completely shaded. And then the other side actually gets quite a bit of sun, as well as a lot of water from running off from the rest of the Widener turf above that. So the two sides are kind of drastically different, but we're going to try and marry them together with a palette of plants that you see here. Preliminarily, we'll see how that develops, but that's the gist of that for now. I think that's, yeah. Are there any questions about that? All right, I'm going to move on to the Pennock Garden. I'm still in the works for finalizing my design for this, but you're going to see a lot of similar plants that Erin had in there last year, things that I knew succeeded and did really well. I'm just going to kind of tweak how things are laid out. There won't be any super exciting cassia plants this year, unfortunately, but hopefully there'll be some other exciting things for you to discover. So that's pretty much all I have for the Compton section. I'll pause for any questions, and then I think we'll get to the English Park area. I think that's it. I think we can move on.
Sorry. Okay. So on to English Park. So as you guys know, then last year the step fountain was renovated and a juniper was removed and a new colorful garden was put in place. So I'm going to expand on that garden and the areas to, Pam, can you go to the next? Thank you. So then the juniper to the left of that bed was then removed this fall, and that's going to be turned into another garden that's going to continue the same kind of color palette that's in the step fountain bed already, and then also flow down into the bed below that kind of goes to the log cabin area that had the yellowwood tree that was removed along with 3 Cornus moss. Next slide, please. And as you can see now, the juniper is removed and the yellowwood as well. And the designs that I'm coming up with are just going to flow through the entire scape and transition into the log cabin area. But the site will be regraded, and we're still setting around the bed parameters of that middle bed where the juniper came out as well. Next slide. Okay, so my theme that I'm going with is kind of a grassland to woodland transition. I wanted things to like connect the sense of place and overall character of English Park. English Park is, I feel like, a really naturalistic garden with a lot of smaller pockets within. And I kind of just want to like pay homage to that. And I'm really inspired lately by these 2 books, Meadows by Christopher Lloyd and then Planting the Natural Garden. They talk a lot about different plants that you can use, but also just give really inspiring photos because I want things, again, to mix really well together and I want things to look very natural. I also am hoping that I can put some winter interest in the gardens. Right now, things are just cut back to the ground, minus a few woody shrubs, which isn't the best, I think. So I would like to just extend the season as long as possible. All right, next. And then also I wanted to kind of go for an ecological focus whenever possible. That doesn't mean that I have to use just natives, but I just want to focus on how to actually use plants in like the best ecological way. So I've been really looking into this book called Planting in a Post-Wild World because it talks more about the plant functions and roles in ecosystems and how you can try and couple that into your own designs. And that also like brings down things like maintenance and like makes it easier on like the gardener's behalf, but also just like really helps environmentally. And it separates in this book into like structural layer plants and then seasonal theme plants and ground cover layer plants. And the ground cover layer plants help to coat the ground in times where like weeds like to come up like in the spring and then also in the fall with things like cardamom. And then seasonal themed plants are things that bring color throughout the season and provide little pops of interest. And then the structural layer are things that provide like the general like scope of the gardens. Next slide, please. So like I said, I wanted to kind of go for a grassland ecosystem-esque garden. It just lends itself so easily because the site has such intense full sun, and then also it experiences high humidity in this end of summer, and then also needs to be incredibly drought tolerant because kind of from like mid-July to end of August here in Pennsylvania, things just get so intensely hot and so dry. But again, I want to keep the scheme to be very colorful, and I want lots of pops of color, but I also kind of want a lightness of texture to just balance it all out and to just integrate that whole like natural design. Next slide, please. And then here are some of my plant choices. This isn't all of them, but this is the main ones. And they mainly appear from early spring and then extend all the way into the fall. And I'm also using these two grasses so that can like extend the season and also can like provide some structure even in the winter time. Next slide, please. And then the woodland bed will then form that kind of ecotype between the woodland and grassland, woodland being the log cabin area and the grassland being the upper two step fountain beds. An ecotype, by the way, is kind of that little drift point between two different ecosystems. And I think that the site just easily like fits within that realm because it already has some of the like features that are present in this. Like naturally, it has a lot of leaning trees that are like going towards the sunlight and struggling to find sun that they need. There are also a lot of snags. There's that one like hemlock snag that's in the bed. And then also there are like large visual openings between different woody species. And I'm trying to either add type of shrub or some type of anchor between those different like openings, just to like have things like create a set rhythm and have things flow together visually. I'm planning to kind of just make the lower ground cover-esque layer that is not fully repetitive, but just like gives a kind of rest to the eye so that you can focus up on the woody species and have that ground the space rather than look down. And here are some of the like plants that I'm thinking about using. And that includes like geranium and pachyra and caryxes and some hellebores and a asarum that's already there. Yeah, so next slide. I think that's it. Oh, so then, I almost forgot. So I'm also changing around the overlook garden, which is something I'm really excited about because I love shade gardens and I love like random rare plants. And so I feel like right now the overlook is just lacking a common thread throughout everything. There's a lot of overgrown species like the Saruma and then also like Liriope. So I've been trying to restrict those plants, just dividing them or just removing them altogether. And then I want to make room for new plants that will introduce like and extend like the bloom season and also like introduce new color dynamics. Like I wanted to use things like down in the lower like left corner, put like some mottled like podophyllum or cool colored like Sinalesis up there with the yellow foliage. And I also want to diversify the fern species. There aren't that many. There's a lot of painted ferns, and I know my area has a lot of ostrich fern, but I wanted to have some cool funky species pop up as well. And these are just some of the plants that I wanted to use, including the astilbe in the top right corner. It's called astilbe chocolate shogun. And I want to use that as my like, common thread anchor to like just echo throughout the entire like sweeping pathway in the overlook garden. That's it. Any questions?
Alex, what's this?
That's Sinalesis.
That's really cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, there's some Sinalesis in the woods outside of Widener. It's a great plant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's also some Sinalesis in the key fountain beds on the top right of it, but nothing with crazy foliage like that.
Cool. Al, you have a question?
I am glad to hear the descriptions of the plans this year. I don't remember it being that way before. My main comparison for the volunteer workshops are the first couple of years when I attended since early 18, I guess it was. I was blown away, as everybody surely was, by the wonderful presentations about foreign places where people had visited and things. But this, as an insight to the plans, is refreshing and it feels real great.
Thank you,
To that-
Al.
Yeah, to that, Al, I'll say we haven't been able to travel anywhere, so we can't talk about those things. So that's part of the issue.
That's cool.
One thing I want to throw out to everybody, I'm not sure people realize this, is that the Step Fountain got a preservation award. I don't know if anybody knew that, from the Chestnut Hill Conservancy Association for excellence in historic restoration. So that's really great. You know, the Step Fountain was 105 years old and was falling apart, and we restored it in the most sympathetic manner possible so we could preserve it in its natural state without really having to disrupt the original bits that were still good. So kudos to the team that did the restoration, and kudos to Alex for helping us carry the beds in this area forward.
Excellent.
I guess that's it.
Are there any other questions for Alex?
No, just comment, look forward to helping us volunteers, helping whomever do the plantings, if possible.
Excellent. So I think there's just a few slides left, which are just mine. And mine really is just centered around the big projects that's coming this spring, is illustrating that the deer fence is going to have to be updated in the natural areas section. As you know, the last couple of summers, we've had some pretty serious flooding. And as a result of the flooding that's been pretty extensive, this is just a small glimpse of the kind of debris that's left over along our iron fence line. And as you can imagine, our deer fence, which is not as sturdy as this fence, I don't have great photographs of it, but there have been a number of occasions, not even floods of this magnitude, that have resulted in the deer fence being completely flattened and allowing for the deer to have easy access. So in this slide here, we're going to illustrate, this is sort of a very loose interpretation of how we wanted to do the deer fencing, and starting hopefully in this early part of the spring, this fence that currently runs along the stream and cuts behind the wetland to the woods is going to enter in through these meadows, and the wetland will then be outside of the deer exclosure. But it's simply, while that isn't ideal in terms of, you know, keeping deer off of the native plant species that are there, it certainly isn't feasible to continue to have this deer fencing be, you know, pummeled by the magnitudes of floods that we have. So we're going to try to weave it through some of the existing trees that are here in the meadows, and then connect it somewhere around where the gemination sequence is about here, and connect it through where it is in the woods. So that's going to be a pretty big undertaking to try to reuse sections of the fencing that are intact and in good shape, and replace them and move them to the front side of the wetland. So that is on the agenda for spring. Any questions?
Just a comment, that's going to change the aesthetic of the meadow, unfortunately.
Agreed. There are a number of large, there Asarurum October glories that are here. So I think we'll hopefully be able to weave through the birches and the maples for a portion of the area, but then there's no denying that at some point you'll be able to see the fence. And those long views across are gonna not be there anymore. But the kind of work it's been taking to reestablish these fences every time it's even a moderate flood is just not cost effective or successful at keeping the deer out either. Any other questions? Nope. Well, I will say that next week we do have our second installment of the volunteer workshops, and it'll be again at 1 o'clock. And we will have Peter Fixler and Brian Tomsonowak talking about the Summer of Swings project that's going to start in June. And then that will be followed by the Plant Sciences Department, Tim and Cindy, talking about their plant research projects that they have been working on. So that'll be nice updates as well from those two departments. All right, well, if there are no other questions, I think we can probably
Pam, this is an easy question, I think. It's Kathy.
I knew there'd be a question. Thank goodness. Yes, Kathy.
No, it's just a quick one, and you may have covered it at the very beginning, and I apologize, I tuned in late. Are you going to have a recording of this available anywhere?
Yes, I did ask that this was recorded, and how exactly, like, where that actually gets archived and can be sent out. I'm not 100% sure. Liza set up the actual Zoom link, but we did record it so that for people who may have missed it altogether, or for somebody who missed the beginning of the presentation, we will try to send that out in an email of some sort.
Yeah, that would be great.
Available.
I came in at the tail end. It looks like there's going to be a sign-up system for volunteers or something that Vince was talking about. So
yes, there'll be a Sign Up Genius type of way that we're going to move forward with that. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Pam, I had a question.
Yep.
About the gates, the Germantown Gate. You know, that was under review and under study for a long time. And I understand that Chestnut Hill College is removing all those scrub trees off the hillside, and they plan to put a driveway entrance in that corner directly across from Hillcrest.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, A, will the view that the Morrises had from Compton over to their cousins on Sugarloaf Hill be reestablished? Windcliff, I think it was called, but it burned down. But there was a view of their cousin's house when they moved.
Oh, I did not know that that was a view along there. I don't think that was the intention at all, but Chestnut Hill College did own this sort of property here that's right along that corner, and they are actually, as part of that process, going to have the driveway. It's going to kind of come out and a little bit cut off our corner to create more of a perpendicular intersection there, so that safer for pedestrians and vehicles and all of the people coming out of that entrance, the new entrance kind of from across the street there at Sugarloaf. I think it will impact our corner just mildly. I think there might be one tree that we have to remove in that process, and that can only speak to what I know, what I remember, and I have seen a little bit of the presentations, and Vince is a little bit better at speaking to this specifically, but we are allowing this sort of corner of our property to be a little bit straightened, but it will be installed by Chestnut Hill and maintained essentially at that location there.
It sounds like it might be a more pedestrian friendly.
I think that's the intent. That yes, that corner is very dangerous because of the way the road curves up to Germantown, and so I think overall the city and Chestnut Hill College went back and forth, and making it more of a perpendicular intersection was going to be safer for a lot of different reasons. Yes.
Will there be sidewalks along Germantown Avenue, say for people walking down from the train or walking up from Chestnut Hill College?
I can't speak to the areas that aren't on our property, but we already currently have a sidewalk along Germantown Avenue, but across Hillcrest on that upward part of Germantown, I don't know if they'll be required to install sidewalks or not. I do know that there'll be sidewalks on the opposite side of the street where Sugarloaf is, but that's all I can speak to. Al, you have a question? You have your hand up?
I'm concerned about the Katsura tree, which is one of the original E.H. Wilson plants from 1910 or 12, and
it's right about here.
Yeah, that's not going to touch it.
It's not going to be anywhere near it. So that's right about here on that curve.
Yeah, the roots.
Yeah, they're not
The
gonna,
roots don't go over there.
they're not gonna go all the way up there. There's
Okay.
one, I think one spruce that might be
Or
coming.
there are two spruces, two tiger tail spruces, but they're not supposed to come out. They did a bunch of analyses with like the urban forestry department and then also with other people, and they said it would be fine. And there's some cisterns also like along that blue like edge too, that they
Yeah,
have to be careful
right
not to mess with. It's a whole
here.
delicate like dance, but
Okay.
nothing's supposed to come out luckily.
Oh,
which is
okay.
awesome.
Last I had heard that there was one thing coming out, but that's good
wow.
news.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to see a graphic of how it will affect the fence as close as it'll get to the tree. That's what I'm wondering about.
Right.
the
I don't
research-
have a good map of that, but the tree isn't anywhere near a concern for there.
One reason I bring that up is because in Always Growing, it mentions that the two Katsura trees we have from 1910 or 12 are the very few of the original ones from the seeds collected by E.H. Wilson.
Yep.
In
Absolutely.
the
And
whole-
preserving that legacy is important.
in all of America. Okay.
Any other questions? Doesn't sound like it. So I guess if there's nothing else, we can sign off and wish you a good week, and hopefully we'll see you all back here on next Wednesday.
Sounds good, Pam. Thanks.
All right. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pam. This was very, very interesting.
If
Oh,
you
good.
stop sharing your screen, we can see each other
Oh, there you go. Is that what you would rather? There you go.
Yeah,
better,
thanks,
so
Pam.
we can wave at people. Nice to see everyone.
Yeah,
Bye-bye, Nancy.
Maybe some
bye,
chatting,
Al.
maybe some chatting.
Bye,
time
Aaron.
next week.
Aaron.
Hi, Mary. Pam, maybe some chatting time next week would be fun.
Sure, we can add that to the end. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions for Tim and Cindy as well when they finish their presentation.
All right, great. Thanks for giving us this.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm hopeful next year it'll be an in-person situation, but trying to make the most of it and communicating is what
You do
it's all
what
we
you
can do at
can.
this. Yeah, exactly. That's funny.
Okay.
It's good to see you all.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Till next week.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.